Happy International Women's Day. This is the day when the women protested against wage discrimination and demanded safe and congenial work environment. According to the World Bank, India's female labor force participation rate was 19.2% in 2021, contributing to only 17% of the country's gross domestic product. Meanwhile, data from the Indian government shows women workforce participation at around 25%. Both data points show that the number of women in the formal workforce continues to remain low in India, especially for a nation dreaming of becoming a $5 trillion economy by 2025. As per the World Bank, at 17% of GDP, the economic contribution of Indian women is less than half the global average. India could boost its growth by 1.5 percentage points to 9% per year if around 50% of women could join the workforce. So, how can India boost these numbers to power a she economy and galvanize growth over the next few decades? The country needs to adopt the lens of gender mainstreaming in all its economic activities and policy level initiatives, both horizontally and vertically. There is a clear business case for accelerating gender equality worldwide. The government has taken various steps to improve women's participation in the labor force and quality of their employment. A number of protective provisions include the Code of Social Security 2020, which has the provisions for enhancement in paid maternity leave, provision for mandatory creche facility in the establishments having 50 or more employees, permitting women workers in the night shifts with adequate safety measures, etc. The Code on Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions 2020 has the provision for the employment of women in the above ground mines, including open cast workings, has been allowed between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. and in below ground working between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. in technical, supervisory and managerial work, where continuous presence may not be required. The Code on Wages 2019 has provisions that there shall be no discrimination in an establishment or any unit thereof among employees on the ground of gender in matters relating to wages by the same employer in respect of the same work or work of similar nature done by any employee. Further, no employer shall make any discrimination on the ground of sex while recruiting any employee for the same work or work of similar nature in the conditions of employment, except where the employment of women in such work is prohibited or restricted by or any other law for the time being. To enhance the employability of female workers, the government is providing training to them through a network of women industrial training institutes, national vocational training institutes, etc. Foundry sector is predominantly run and served by men. However, with time, the sector is also experiencing more women, be it in leadership position, as daughters are inheriting business, or more professionals are coming for hardcore engineering sector or in the workforce. Hence, it is imperative that we should provide level playing field to our women folks and bring forth growth and move towards a more equitable world. While we'll celebrate Shivaratri today, we cannot deny the role of men like Shiva, who have empowered their companion with arms, who knows a woman can protect the world and who can destroy the world in rage if their dear woman is dishonored. So let us empower our women with ammunition of knowledge, economic independence, and freedom. May I request our President, sir, to deliver the welcome address. This is our privilege to have you, sir, on this important topic, on the discussion of it. While after your welcome address, I'll introduce our speaker. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Edie ma'am, and namaskar and greetings to all the participants, and mainly to the speaker, Dr. Tina Singh. IIF has already empowered women because Edie is now in charge of whole IIF, and we also appreciate the work she's doing on this day, and we would like to recognize our involvement, although it is a very short period. Already, I think around 16 months, 16 months she is in the office. Thank you very much, madam. Once again, greetings to all. Today, 8th March, is auspicious on many fronts. We are celebrating both Shakti and Shiva energies today. Both are two energies. One is women as well as other is other gender. Shivratri, and it is also it's an International Women's Day. While remembering and respecting Lord Shiva, it's our duty to honor the women who paved the way for progress and equality. A workshop by IIF to pledge for safety of women at workplace and understand the POSH Act. These are all, I consider these three activities as, that's why I consider this as an auspicious day. Best wishes to all of you on this auspicious day and on this occasion. This program is about to know our commitment and fostering workplace environment characterized by dignity, respect, safety for all. As we are here for the program, we should affirm our culture where every individual feels valued, empowered, and protected. POSH is not only a legal obligation, it's a moral imperative for all of us. We should ensure our workplaces are free from scourge of harassment in all its forms. I am sure this program will dwell upon the act, make the participant the importance of act, understand what's pros and cons of the implications if we do not follow the act. I wish it is a 90 minutes workshop and informative, educative, and interactive. We have with us Dr. Tina Singh, Professor and Registrar at New Delhi Institute of Management, who will be giving the overall act and its what all the important informations in the act, and it is for us as a participant to take it and implement in our workplace. With these few words, once again, I welcome you all for this very important program organized by our HO under the leadership of once again a woman, ED, and let us listen and whatever any queries we can always interact offline or online, and I'm sure many industries, foundry industries and the related suppliers here, in fact, the customers are driving us for the gender diversity. All of you should note, and I think Dr. Tina Singh may be aware. In fact, we are doing for many of the multinationals, we at Shantana. They are already informing that we should have a gender diversity, and they are asking us to have a roadmap to have the at least 33% women in our organization. Although ED ma'am said in foundry it is very less of women. Already we are employed wherever it is possible, where light work is there. Already we have employed many lady or women workforce, and to the information of all of you, their productivity, the discipline, and punctuality to do duty is highest. We cannot. That's one benefit we are getting, and already we have implemented POSH Act in our organization. With that few words, I would like to hand over the proceeds to ED ma'am to take it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your encouraging words. We are sure that with your leadership, the foundry sector will have more gender equity. Today, we are very delighted and privileged to have Dr. Tina Singh with us, who is the Professor and Registrar and Head of International Relations of New Delhi Institute of Management. She has 22 years of experience in the field of HR, academic, strategic management, and consultancy, both for the corporate and academia. She has organized many conferences, summits, MDPs, and panel discussions on futuristic topics. Her papers have been published in national and international journals. Student engagement, employee engagement, and psychological well-being are her current areas of research. She is responsible for establishing international linkages and leading new strategic initiatives. She has authored a book on people's management in 21st century published by McGraw-Hill. She is an external member of POSH Committee of CDSE, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. She is a member of CII's HRIR Committee and a member of Academic Council of NHRD Network, Delhi NCR Chapter. Thank you, Madam. Floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abhishekta. Thank you, Chandrasekhar sir, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be amongst all of you. And my wishes to everyone who's attending on the International Women's Day as well as Mahashivratri. So President sir rightly pointed out, this is the day where we recognize the power of women as well as the power of, Shiva. So if both of us work together, things are going to be wonderful. So with that background, I would want to begin by sharing my screen and take you through the journey of POSH law and how it impacts all of us, irrespective of our gender. And being from a country which, Dr. Abhishekta already gave you the statistics about the contribution of women to the economy and what kind of forecast we have. If we are talking about a strong future for India, we have all genders have to work together and hand in hand. And with that background, the expectation of POSH law is to make sure that the workplace is safer for all in the organization. And the extension of POSH law applies to women and men as well. So I'll begin by sharing my screen. If somebody could confirm that you see my screen, please.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the basic expectation of this session is to not only sensitize you about the expectation of the law, but also about the background that we must create in the organizations that we are part of, since all of you are representing such big organizations, and that too an organization which is considered a traditional kind of an organization where very few women workforce are part of the day-to-day lives. In that scenario, this particular session has been designed. Now, let me begin by sharing some of the statistics which would tell you that how important awareness is about POSH law. And this is a study by Economic Times through Comply Karo website. And in the financial year 23, there has been 31% more reported case than they were in the financial year 2022. That means out of the 500 BSc companies, 370 of them have reported sexual harassment cases in their organization. And you are seeing sector-wise analysis that this news report talked about. So you talk about IT sector, financial services, telecom, manufacturing, which traditionally hasn't been hiring a lot of women, yet there has been 50% reportage of sexual harassment cases. And the onus and the responsibility of this kind of statistics goes to the management of the organizations and also the labor administration and the member organizations like you, that how can we ensure that our members follow the compliance, not only the compliance, but make sure that everything is safer for the women. So when this act came about, the expectation was that in case a sexual harassment scenario occurs, that's when the complaint committee must get into action. But over the years, there has been change in the POSH law as well, that before we wait for any sexual harassment issue to happen, the environment itself should be made so safe, and all companies must take proactive steps so that people are aware of what are the do's and don'ts. So all the analysis of various judgments and cases that have come out of POSH law brought forward a finding that people were not aware that some of their conduct, some of the words that they were using, some of their behavior can be construed as sexual harassment. So that's where the responsibility of management of various organizations comes into play. that through your HR, through your heads of organization, through your heads of your association, you have to ensure about sensitization of various employees and members that you come in touch with as part of your organization. So with this I would want to tell you that how important the implementation of POSH law is. And we just completed 10 years of this law, and the Supreme Court wasn't happy with the implementation of this law. And in May 2023, it served notice to many government departments and many public sector undertakings for violation of POSH law. Now, when we say violation, it simply means that they did not organize the awareness session for their employees, nor did they duly constitute internal committees. So because of that, they gave 8 weeks notice, and all organizations have to put up the information of their internal committees on their websites. So that is the ruling of Honorable Supreme Court just last year in May 23. That's when the POSH law completed 10 years. And the expectation from all of us is that wherever we go, we must create that awareness. And with this background, let's move forward. I would like to begin with a question. I'm sure all of you have come across this concept called gender gap. And there is a World Economic Forum report called Global Gender Gap Report. Can anybody tell me where do you think India came into this ranking? This is very recent ranking in 2023. And it ranks countries, about 146 countries in the world, on 4 parameters. So like economic participation and opportunity for women, educational attainment of women, health and survival facilities for women, and political empowerment of women. So on the basis of these 4 parameters, 146 countries were ranked. Can anybody take a guess? Where do you think India ranked in this report? The gender parity report. Anybody can take a guess? Where do you think we ranked? Anyone?
127.
Wonderful, Sanjeev ji. That is where we ranked, but it is not a very promising figure for a country. We are talking about a country which is rich in human resource, where we are talking about women driving the economy in future. And as recent as last year, we are ranked 127th out of 146. So there's a lot to be done. And one such effort in that direction is creating awareness about gender issues, making sure that the gap that exists in a society, traditionally we have been brought up like that. And it is not the fault of people that they at times behave in a certain manner. The only reason is that gender tend to get typecast or stereotyped in a certain manner. Now, that is where the requirement of gender sensitivity comes in. And when we say gender sensitivity, we have to understand it is not only about creating empowerment opportunities, but also understand that traditionally we live in a society where we learn about gender roles. And here I want to talk about Ministry of Women and Child's definition of gender. And all of you know that India as a country has recognized 3 genders. It's not the era of binary genders anymore. We are talking about 3 genders, but if you go on the global scale, there are many types of gender identities that exist. So the Ministry of Women and Child Development feels that the basic issue of sensitivity towards gender rests in our understanding of gender roles. So according to them, gender is nothing but culturally and socially constructed roles, the responsibilities we undertake, the privileges we enjoy, the kind of relationships we manage in a society, and the expectations we have from women, men, boys, girls, etc. Like, for example, when we talk about, our family expecting a new child, and people tend to start suddenly thinking about, the roles that these people would play. Like, for example, if you look at the image on the screen, traditionally, I'm not talking about right now, but majority of the households in India still identify with the image that you see. What image are we seeing? We're seeing that the boys are trained more towards outdoor activities, the games, etc., more. And girls are, traditionally oriented towards something that is more subtle, something that is not physically taxing, and something that is able to keep them safe. And even the association of colors, that the newborn baby boys should be dressed in blue, and young newborn baby girls have to be dressed in pink. It is not something that, is an outcome of research, but it is something what we have learned. This is what we have seen. And this is what is we need to create an awareness in our organizations, that this kind of gender differences exist in our society. But when it comes to safety of women at workplace, there are certain non-negotiables. There are certain behaviors that we are not going to accept as the organization. Else, the growth of a country would become very stunted. And, to take forward this point of gender inequality, gender sensitivity, I would want to play a video right now. I want each one of you to, think about one key takeaway from your video. Okay.
This afternoon, we're going to draw people doing different jobs. And the first job we're going to draw is a firefighter.
Have a think in your head what a firefighter looks like.
What's your firefighter called?
Mine's called Firefighter Gary.
Firefighter Stan. Firefighter Simon.
He's big and strong.
He's got a big helmet on.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Next, we're going to draw a surgeon.
Have you thought of a name for your surgeon?
Jimbo.
Jim Bob.
He's a brain surgeon.
I think he would wear a stethoscope. He gives you medicine.
That's his ambulance.
OK, next, we're going to draw a fighter pilot.
This is his jet plane.
He rescues people.
He likes to do stunts in the air and stuff.
OK, now, who would like to meet these people for real?
Yeah! They're dressed up.
My name's Tamsin, and I'm a surgeon in the NHS.
My name's Lauren, and I'm a pilot in the Royal Air Force.
My name's Lucy. I'm a firefighter in the London Fire Brigade.
So who wants to know how to do an operation?
Who's putting it on?
Try my stethoscope.
We put this in here. There you go. Now you're a proper fighter pilot.
So into your ears. Can you hear that? Yeah. It's really good. It's much better, yeah, it's much better than the kids' one.
I'm sure all of you saw this video. Can anybody tell me what was the entire essence of this video? What was the purpose of talking about this video in a POSH workshop? Anyone? What was the essence of this video? Why do you think this research video was shown to all of you? So the main expectation of this video was that we all live in a society where the stereotyping on the basis of gender of people is done at a very early age. So when it comes to dealing with employees of a certain age, you need to understand that what background they're coming in from. They have learned this thing by observation, by experiences, and by being part of societies, social groups, communities that they are part of. So once they come into your organizational setting, it becomes your responsibility as managers, as HR people, as association heads, that you decide the code of conduct in the organization and convey and sensitize that what is not acceptable behavior against any gender in the organizations that we are part of. So since the gender stereotyping is so rampant in the society globally, even in our country, so we need to make sure the organizational rules are open in terms of clarity is given to the employees with reference to what is expected, what is acceptable behavior, and what is not acceptable behavior. Now let's move forward with our discussion. That now that we understand that we come from a society which may have stereotypes, which may have a colored lens to look at women, men, and the other gender. When people come from that background, they come to work in an organization, it becomes the responsibility of the organization to sensitize people about the gender. When we say sensitization towards gender, it is about what are the roles that people play in the organization, what kind of code of conduct they should be there, what are the do's and don'ts that may be followed, what are the prohibitory practices that exist in the organization, and what penalties that can be there. And here I want to bring forward a fact that as per law, as per POSH law, it says very clearly says that it is the responsibility of the employer to list sexual harassment as misconduct in their service rules. So if you have service rules, if you have HR policies, if you have standing orders, it is your obligation as an employer to list sexual harassment as a misconduct, and also list down the penal actions that may accrue as part of a misconduct inquiry as part of your policy. So that is what is the expectation of POSH law, that there is need for sensitizing people about what is gender, what kind of parity exists, and what are the acceptable behavior and prohibitory practices. And in case of misconduct of sexual harassment, what kind of penal provisions would apply to that particular situation. Now here, once again, I am going to showcase a research study. This is a global research study carried out in many countries. And this also brings forward a fact. This study was given to many people of different age groups and different gender. And many of them could not answer this riddle. So here I will also showcase this riddle to you and would want you to answer that what is the answer to this riddle. Yeah.
As part of an experiment to explore the human mind, we asked 22 people to solve the same riddle and recorded their responses. Feel free to participate also. Are you ready?
The riddle. A father is about to bring his son to a job interview, applying for a position at a large stockbrokers company in the city. Just as they arrive at the company's parking lot, the son's phone rings. He looks at his father, who says, "Go ahead, answer it." The caller is the trading company CEO, who says, "Good luck, son, you've got this." The son ends the call and once again looks at his father, who is still next to him in their car. How is this possible?
So this video, like I said, was made by a research organization. They carried out a social experiment with different age groups and different genders, and they gave this riddle to them. And, many of them could not answer, which I'm sure all of you can answer. Can anybody tell me what is the answer to the riddle? The question is, who do you think called this young man? Can anyone answer this riddle? I'm sure all of you can. It is just to put forward a fact that even established countries, which are so-called developed nations, have this kind of gender disparity. Yes, Sugata ji, please. You are on mute.
চালু রাখুন।
Sugata sir, are you saying something? Would you want to say something? You raised your hand. Okay. I'm sure all of you know the answer, but maybe because of technical aspects, you're not able to answer. So let me show you the second half of this video, and then we can continue our discussion.
He gets a call from the CEO But it says,
"Good luck, son."
But he was next to him.
So it's not the father.
I think it was probably an audio recording of his father.
Maybe he made a demo tape.
Like he has two fathers?
this is a hard one.
Maybe it's a word joke, like it's the grandfather of the son.
No, I think his name is Son.
I don't know.
Maybe it's just like an old man, calling a younger guy son.
I have no idea.
The answer. It's his mother.
Oh, that's so stupid. Yes, of course.
I should have thought of that, yes.
The CEO is a woman.
So I'm biased. In a sense. Is this about diversity and inclusion?
It's really mind-blowing, actually.
I always thought that I'm not very sexist. But in spite of that, I think these subconscious biases are there in everyone's mind.
How much bias I still have in terms of thinking that the CEO needs to be a man.
Yeah, I definitely was picturing a man.
They identify with males more than females these days.
Why can't women also be CEOs or doctors or, right?
When I think about a CEO or someone that's high positioned within a company, I mostly think of men.
And it's a shame, I think.
And that's so weird, because I'm a CEO, and I'm a woman.
And I want to be a CEO. Why didn't I think about that? Crap.
I believe women can absolutely be CEOs, and that's definitely something that we should work on, especially when you're saying that so many people have been told this riddle and most people haven't gotten it.
Women make great CEOs and great leaders as well. And yet only 5% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. Let's change our mindset.
I'm sure all of you saw this research video, and it was just to take home the fact that even though we may not know it, but subconsciously or in our unconscious biasness exists. And that means there are certain roles that only women can play. There are certain roles that only men can play. And when it comes to top positions, only men can handle. And I was very happy to see Dr. Abhishekta, at the top level in the ED position, and as part of an industry which is traditionally known as a sector which is dominated by male gender. And that means you've already started the journey of transition for your particular sector. And now there is need for understanding what are the legal nuances and what kind of implications the implementation of POSH law has for all of us. Now, with that background, where I have already stressed about the need for sensitivity towards women, making sure that the world is a safer place, and also try to tell you that it is a global phenomenon, that there is gender disparity that exists. And if we in our country are able to balance that, strike this balance between the gender struggle that exists and making sure that the workplace is safer, we'll definitely be a better country than many of the developed nations, as we call forward. Wonderful. Now let's move on and talk about what are the guiding principles which were considered before the enactment of POSH law. And I'm sure all of you are aware, but just in the interest of today's session, I want to stress on the fact that the essence of POSH law rests in the Constitution of India. And that is where the power of POSH law comes from. And the 3 articles which are considered as the base for designing of POSH law are based on the tenets of equality. And equality is a fundamental right for each citizen of India. And the preamble of the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act very clearly says that whereas sexual harassment results in violation of the fundamental rights of a woman to equality. So imagine that the legislation has taken its roots from the most important document for a country known as the Constitution of India, and the 3 articles which guarantee the equality of rights for all gender are Article 14, 15, and 21. So they are the guiding principles for designing of this POSH law, as we call it. And the basis is that there has to be right to equal protection under law. That means that each one of us, irrespective of gender, would find protection under the Constitution of India and the laws of the land. The Article 15 talks about our right to live a free life from discrimination on any ground. And this is considered as the base for POSH law, that be it the discrimination in hiring, in promotion, in training, in keeping the workplace a safer place. We have to make sure that we are upholding the fundamental rights of women at workplace. And then there is right to protection of life and personal liberty. So basically what I'm trying to stress is that the essence of the sexual harassment law flows from the Constitution of India. And the basic premise, it says that protection against sexual harassment of women at workplace is a fundamental right to equality for women. And that is why we must ensure the implementation of this law in our organizations. So the Act in the general parlance is addressed as POSH law, but the complete name nomenclature of the Act is Sexual Harassment for Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2013. Now, when we are talking about the new India, where we are talking about genders being equal, where we are talking about equal representation of men and women and the third gender at workplace, why should we have this kind of legislation? And the need for this legislation flows from the society that we are part of. Traditionally, Indian women haven't been part of the workforce for a very long time. And we've had cases like Bhavri Devi, Batra Devi, and Nirbhaya case, where even women have been sexually assaulted and left to, fend for themselves or even die as an outcome of a sexual assault from this circumstance. So when the vision of India talks about an economy which is a force to reckon with, it cannot be done alone by one gender, and it has to be equal participation from all gender. Hence, this law came about, and it was in 2013 December that it came into being, and just as an aftermath of Nirbhaya case in Delhi. And the Act has 3 basic provisions. One is the prevention, which basically means that you need to sensitize people about what is sexual harassment, what are the do's and don'ts in your organization. Then comes the second part, which is the prohibition, which is creation of POSH policy in your organization and making sure you list down sexual harassment as a misconduct in your service rules, in your standing orders, and your HR policy. And finally, it is the redressal. That means in case any sexual harassment issue were to happen, then what is the remedy under the Act? So these are the 3 phases of the POSH law that we would discuss about. Now, the basic expectation of the Act we have already talked about, but just for everyone's benefit, it is to provide protection against sexual harassment of women at workplace. So basically, the aim is all those 3 aspects which are said, prevention, prohibition, and redressal of the complaints made by women of sexual harassment. So any complaint other than sexual harassment are not to be handled at the POSH committee level, but any aspect of sexual harassment has to be covered by this particular law. So where does this law apply to? This is very important for everyone to notice that this law applies to the entire country. All establishments, be it organized sector or unorganized sector. So this is important to note. Like every labor law, list down a list of employees. So this says that if you have 10 or more employees, constitution of internal committee is mandatory. But the beauty of POSH law is that even in the unorganized sector, even if you don't have 10 employees in your organization, the POSH law applies to you. Hence, the session that all of us are meeting in is very important, that it applies to the entire country. It has no condition of number of employees. Even if you have 2 or 3 employees on your muster roll, this applies to you. It does not matter if you have 0 women employees in your organization, still you need to follow the guidelines of the POSH law. It does not matter which industry you're part of. It does not matter if you are part of organized sector or an unorganized sector. Location of your office does not matter. And the legal status of your establishment does not matter. So you can imagine when this law came into being, how important it was envisaged that the coverage tried to include as many people, and the appropriate government has the power to extend this to any sector, any organization if it feels that safeguards. Like for very recently, in 2022, a Kolkata High Court judgment extended even the provisions of POSH law to schools, which were dealing with the issue of POXO cases, which is against children. But they felt that if there is sexual harassment of women even in school, this can be extended. So that is the extent of implementation of this law. Now, what is this law? We've already talked about the essence, and the important point to notice that when this act came into being in 2013, the issues like sexual harassment, stalking women, voyeurism, making obscene comments were all considered under criminal offenses, and they were considered as sexual offenses under the POSH law. And even the changes to the Indian Penal Code were also suggested post this. And the woman has the option to file a complaint either under the POSH committee or can also file a complaint with the police. So that's how serious the country is about this menace called sexual harassment at workplace. Now, when we talk about POSH law implementation in an organization, we must know that any case that comes across in your organization, these are the 4 elements that normally come with it. There is always an aggrieved woman because the legislation is woman-centric. Aggrieved woman is a lady who has gone through the experience of sexual harassment at workplace. The second condition for POSH law to be applicable is there has to be a workplace. And when we say workplace is not only the physical boundaries of the office. If your office has organized a conference and you've sent your employees there, even that comes under the purview of workplace. If you have any meetings that you are sending your employees to attend, they also come under the purview of workplace. And there is something known as working relationship. That means a supervisor, subordinate, colleagues, client, vendor organization, anybody who comes in that purview would be coming under the POSH law. And the 4th element of the POSH law is the act of sexual harassment. So we must create awareness that what is sexual harassment and what types exist in our society, so that people do not engage in these situations and make it unsafe for women to work in your organization. Now, this is where normally, people wonder that since I have 0 women employees, then does POSH law apply to me? So the answer to this question is yes. Because the POSH law, when it defined the concept of aggrieved woman, it says it can be anyone who is working for your organization, anyone who is visiting your organization, even students who are, part of an institution can be termed as aggrieved woman. It can include a domestic worker. Domestic worker means even your domestic help finds coverage under this POSH law. If your regular employees, your temporary employees, ad hoc, contractual, trainees, apprentice, any third-party payroll workers, anyone who's working for your organization as interns, somebody who's working on stipend, anybody who's working on a short-term, fixed-term contract, anybody who's working through an agent for your organization, they all get protection under the POSH law. Hence, the concept of sensitization is stressed upon for all of us. And the workplace, like I already explained to you, that is any place where a woman is out for work. Like right now, I'm in my college. So this college is my workplace. Last week, I was in Varanasi taking a session. So because it was an official travel, even the travel to Varanasi till the time I came back to my workplace, I was under the protection of POSH law. If anything were to happen to me, then the POSH law provisions would have come into play. So any place where I am out to work as a woman, or otherwise with a person whom I'm having a working relationship, like I said, it could be superior subordinate, it could be peers, it could be members and associations, it could be teacher-student relationship, it could be colleagues, anybody who's forming the part of a working relationship is important for POSH law. And workplace is not restricted to 4 walls of the office. It extends to virtual scenario also. It extends to social media network of your organization. It extends to WhatsApp groups that you may have. If you have any email groups that you're part of, even those come under the purview of workplace under the POSH law. This I have talked about, client locations, supplier locations, office cab, buses, traveling to conferences, trainings, meetings, virtual channels like email, sharing tools, virtual conferences, phones, going out for team dinners, outing, annual picnic, etc., office parties, office hostels, guest houses, even they all come under the purview of extended workplace for POSH law. Now, when we talk about sensitizing women and men and the other gender about the menace of sexual harassment, it becomes important that we talk about the law with reference to what is it defined as. So if you look at this image on the screen, it is telling you about sexual harassment, which was traditionally known as making sexually colored remarks, making physical contact and advances, showing pornography at workplace, any demand for or request for sexual favors, unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct of sexual nature qualifies as sexual harassment. So it is important that when you design your POSH policy or when you add sexual harassment as misconduct, please make a list of these things that I am showing on the screen and share it with the employees as do's and don'ts. This is important for you to sensitize your employees. The extended definition of sexual harassment says that other than what we just saw, which was part of Vishakha guidelines of 1993, in 2013, these 4 elements were also added. That means Section 3 of the POSH law was added, which basically said that implied or explicit promise of preferential or detrimental treatment of employment. Like, for example, a woman is solicited some kind of sexual demand by a colleague or an employee in the organization, and they threaten her that if you don't agree to this request, then we won't recommend your name for promotion, or we will spoil your performance rating. When these kind of scenarios are created, they are considered as sexual harassment. Any act by a colleague or supervisor or client which interferes with a woman's work or creation of an intimidating, hostile, offensive work environment with sexual connotations can come under the definition of sexual harassment at workplace. Any threat that any individual makes in the organization about present or future employment status, if the woman does not agree to sexual favors, is termed as sexual harassment. And if a woman has refused sexual favors and she is subjected to humiliating treatment, that itself qualifies as sexual harassment at workplace. Now I have a question for all of you. Do you think this question, if somebody asks you this, what would be your answer? That what happens when no one directly has said something to me negative, but has passed sexual comments or commented about my looks behind my back? Do you think it can qualify as sexual harassment? Anybody?
Yes, ma'am, it still can qualify.
It can qualify as a sexual harassment. Yes, that means it does not have to be straight away directed in front of me, but if it is pervasive in the organization, it can qualify as a sexual harassment. Another question on the screen. So this woman is working for a multinational company, and in one incident, her manager has promised her preferential treatment at work if she consents to sexual favors. Can she file a complaint in respect of sexual harassment, even if this is one incident?
Yes, she can.
Yes, she can. Yes, she can. Wonderful. I think we are all on the same page that all these aspects come under the purview of sexual harassment, or in terms of two definitions that we just discussed. And just for everyone's benefit, it has to be part of the POSH law, POSH policy, and HR policy in your organizations, that what are the forms of sexual harassment. So you must know all those things that you see on the screen, physical, non-verbal, verbal, form part of sexual harassment. So it becomes your responsibility as employers to list these things and sensitize your employees that if they engage in any of these acts, then it will be a case of sexual harassment, and the inquiry proceedings would be carried out. So there can be verbal sexual harassment as well. And I'm sure many women in India have experienced this. And it can be unwanted requests for dates, sexual favors, question about somebody's personal life, marital status, lewd comments, dirty and sexual jokes, whistling, catcallings. All these things form part of verbal sexual harassment and can be tried as a POSH law case. Then physical sexual harassment, I don't think I need to stress enough that it is the most violent form of sexual harassment, and it is not the act itself, but the impact it has created on the woman, which makes it very difficult for her to continue. There is visual sexual harassment. That means, which is at times difficult to prove that, but women have definitely been subjected to wrong looks, long staring, circulation of wrong images, winking, having images which are sexually explicit, unsharing of unwanted SMS, MMS, etc., are all part of visual sexual harassment, which come under the purview of POSH law. Then there is also something known as psychological sexual harassment. People don't think what impact the sexual harassment act has over women, and they feel that the movies, how they personify romance and constant persuasion of your love interest, is wrongful sexual harassment in the psychological sense, and this should be part of the non-negotiable actions. And in today, especially now in the post-COVID scenario, when all of us have got used to the concept of virtual space of work and working from home, so the POSH law even applies to work from home scenario and virtual workplace settings as well. So your WhatsApp groups, your personal chats on WhatsApp, sharing of inappropriate jokes, commenting on somebody's display picture, using email for unprofessional, solicitation, all these things also fall under the purview of virtual sexual harassment. Hence, it is important, especially for women, to know that all these things come under sexual harassment law, and for our men colleague and other genders, that these types of behaviors are also under the purview of law. Hence, we must sensitize our teams to refrain from these acts. So key takeaways for all of us is that any gesture, action, word, look, etc., which has sexual connotations to it, it amounts to sexual harassment under law. any action which makes the woman uncomfortable is sexual harassment. The feeling of the aggrieved woman, the complainant, is important in the POSH law, but not the intention of the person who has done it. So this is very important. It is a progressive legislation which says that I am not many, men folk who come forward and say that I wasn't aware, this was not my intention. But when it comes to internal committees, they have to see what impact this act has made on the woman employee and take it forward. And these are some other harassment which do not fall under the purview of POSH law, but as leaders of your respective organizations and associations and forums, you must keep in mind that when you're framing rules, please keep space for other types of harassment as well. And as per the POSH law, any kind of sexual harassment, virtual, visual, psychological, physical, verbal, can qualify into two types of sexual harassment. So there is something known as quid pro quo sexual harassment, which basically means that this for that, when somebody's supervisor offers benefits or threatens to change one's working conditions. That means if a woman agrees to sexual advances, then she is entitled to better pay, better benefits, better title, better positions, better rating. But if she says that she refuses, then her position is negated, demoted, and all that. So this entire scenario is called as quid pro quo, sexual harassment. This is very important. And since all of you are representing a forum which has many organizations as members, please make sure that you create such sensitization awareness, and the misconduct rules must reflect this. So that is what is known as this for that or quid pro quo sexual harassment. And the second type of legally recognized sexual harassment under POSH law is hostile environment. And if you all remember that initially I said that not everybody is very aware of what is sexual harassment and what is not sexual harassment. So this is second type of sexual harassment that may exist in the organizations when the environment is so hostile that people use sexually suggestive comments, abuses in the organization directed towards female sexuality, gestures, advances, pictures, objectionable emails, etc., which is all pervasive in the organization, and every woman employee is accustomed to this kind of hostile work environment sexual harassment, and which is against the POSH law. So it is important for us to empower women and give them the confidence, because we come from a society where women traditionally haven't been trained by our families to say no, or we have been trained in a manner to be a very subtle participant in the process, and in case something were to happen, not to raise our voices. So but when you're dealing with strong women, it is important that you train your team, your women folk in your teams, to say no. And that if any colleague is behaving inappropriately, we must have the confidence to say no, because the provisions of POSH law has made it the responsibility of your employer to safeguard your rights at the workplace. And why sexual harassment law and awareness and sensitization sessions are important, because what you see on the screen are various effects that it causes for the women as well as the organization. So there are psychological impacts, what you see, mental health, depression, fear, trust, trauma issues. Professional, since she's gone through such an experience, she feels insecure, her productivity goes down. Many women leave organizations, they forego their promotion opportunities. There are physiological impact of sexual harassment, injuries, trauma, high blood pressures, weight gains, etc. Economic impact over the organization as well as women. Accesses to opportunities become limited. There is job insecurity, promotions get restricted, and if a good performing woman goes through such an experience and exits from the workforce. So imagine the impact it would have over the productivity of the organization also. And in the society itself, the entire climate of the society becomes very weak and a distrusting situation. That's why parents tell their girl child not to stay out after 6 p.m. and not to go out alone. All these things are menace of a society which restricts the growth of women in the organization and society. Now, here I want to showcase a video which will tell you about the summary of POSH law, and then we'll continue our discussion.
Asma is a 40-year-old doctor in a government hospital in Delhi. Today is just another day at work.
This print looks like a pillow cover. Only if I use it as a pillow will I know how soft it is.
Such unwelcome or unwanted comments at the workplace are an offense under the POSH Act. In case of sexual harassment, whether employee, student, client, or a visitor, you can file a complaint with the Internal Complaints Committee of the concerned establishment. Any unwanted sexually determined behavior such as inappropriate touch, groping, sexually colored remarks, or showing of pornography are also punishable under sections 354A and 509 of the IPC. Rashmi is 18 years old and works as a domestic help in a private housing colony. Today, Mr. Arora's family is not at home.
Rashmi, you forgot to clean under this study table. Get it done right away. Are you done?
Yes, Sahib. For any woman working in an informal sector such as dwelling places, medium and small-scale industries, agricultural farms, or salt plains where there are less than 10 employees, if she has suffered sexual harassment at the workplace, she can file a complaint with the local committee of her district. After preparing a cup of coffee, Adya sits for her conference meeting. Her company has allowed her to work from home due to health issues. She receives a message from Akshat, her co-employee.
How do you like it?
This is the third time now. Enough! Workplace sexual harassment does not have to be physical to qualify as an offense. If you are being sexually harassed on call, email, WhatsApp, or any social media platform, you can file a complaint with the Internal Complaints Committee of your organization or the local committee, as the case may be. Sexual harassment at the workplace is a violation of your fundamental right to equality, to live with dignity, to practice any profession which includes the right to a safe environment free from sexual harassment. Speak up for your rights. Take a stand. Support is at hand.
I'm sure this video summarized what I just spoke. Now let's move forward with some other important aspects of the law, which is the last part of the session, which is the redressal mechanism. Under the POSH law, there are two sources or two bodies which can handle the redressal. One is known as the internal committee, which is for every organization which has 10 or more employees, it makes it mandatory for you to constitute the internal committee. And any agreed woman, like we discussed, can approach the internal committee in case she has encountered any sexual harassment issue at workplace. So this is where you need to check for your members, for your own organizations. If you have 10 or more members, please make sure 10 or more employees. That means it does not matter if it is male or female. Even if you have 0 women employees, you need to have internal committee, because even visiting women or visiting people who are of this gender can also file complaint with the internal committee. And the organizations which come under the unorganized sector, which have less than 10 employees, for them, the district administration, the district collector's office nominates a committee known as the local committee. And in case any woman who's from this organization, which has less than 10 employees, can approach the local committee in their respective district. And also in case, a sexual harassment complaint is against the top boss of the organization, even in that case, a woman has the right to approach the local committee. So the redressal mechanism under the POSH law talks about these two committees. And for all of you who are attending today, I'm sure you're representing your organizations. So if you have 10 or more employees, please make sure that the composition of internal committee is there, and the details of this information is posted in your reception area, the key areas where people assemble, and even on your company's website. It is a requirement of the law. And if you have to constitute the internal committee, then this is the composition which has been notified under the POSH law. There has to be a presiding woman who has to be a senior woman employee. She has to be the chairperson of the internal committee. And there has to be 2 members from the employee side, out of which one has to be a woman employee and one can be a male employee. And both these employees need to have some kind of experience for dealing with women issues, legal issues, social issues, so that they are able to give their inputs in a case of sexual harassment. And the 4th member of internal committee is known as the external member or the independent member. And they have to be somebody who's representing an NGO or somebody who has a legal background. Not your legal retainer lawyer can be part of your internal committee. That is violation of the spirit of the impartiality that is expected. So your internal committee, which you please revisit in your companies and look for this composition. If it is there, this is how it should be followed. And the district committee, the DC's office, which constitute local committee, is a 5-member committee. There also the chairperson is a woman who is from the background of women empowerment, and it has 1 woman member from municipality. It has 2 members, out of which 1 is a woman, and they both are representatives from various NGOs working in the space of women empowerment and women issues. And the 5th member is the social welfare officer of that district, who is the ex officio member. So this is the redressal mechanism given under the POSH law. If any woman faces sexual harassment in an organization, they should definitely approach the internal committee of their organization. And if you don't have an internal committee, please contact the DC's office. You will get details of your local committee for filing the complaints. And how do we file the complaints? It has to be a written complaint, and it has to be filed within 3 months of the sexual harassment incident, or if there has been series of sexual harassment issues, then from the last incident, 90 days window is what we have. And just this month, a new bill has been introduced in the parliament that this duration be extended to 1 year. Once it gets approved, probably it will become 1 year. But as of now, it is 90 days from the last incident. And a written complaint must have these details, what you see on the screen: date of complaint, date of incident, working relationship, name of the complainant, name of the respondent. Respondent is the person against whom the complaint is made, the time of the incident, and the detailed description of the incident. So all these 6 elements should be part of the written complaint to be made to the internal committee. And once the complaint is received by the internal committee, the woman has the choice to opt for either a conciliation, which is an informal mechanism to resolve the conflict, or the internal committee can take it forward through the process of inquiry, which has to be completed within 90 days of receiving the complaint. This is the timeline for the entire POSH law. Within 90 days of the last incident, a complaint has to be filed. Once the complaint is received by the internal committee, internal committee has to send a copy of the complaint and the accompanying documents to the respondent within 7 days of receipt of complaint, and the respondent gets about 10 working days to respond to the notice from the internal committee, that if the person accepts the charge or refuses the charge, that means he has to write to the internal committee that the charges leveled against him, he pleads guilty or not guilty, and then the internal committee bases this reply, takes about 90 days window to complete the process of inquiry. And in this 90 days window, there is interaction with the aggrieved woman, there is interaction with the respondent against whom the complaint is made. If there are any witnesses listed by either of the parties, they are interviewed. Any video camera footage, any SMS, any WhatsApp information, email information can be solicited by the internal committee, because under the POSH law, the internal committee of any organization has the power of a civil court. So they can ask for these documents. So that's how serious the law is, and we have to just ensure the implementation. And within 90 days, the inquiry has to be completed. So this entire time-bound activity is to give the timely respite, unlike in the civil matters and the criminal matters, which take years to resolve. This has a clear-cut 90 days timeline, and IC takes further 10 days to write their report and give copy to the management, and management has about 60 days to review the report and implement the findings of the report. And in case there is any appeal, either of the parties dissatisfied by the report that has been given by IC, then they can file an appeal with the appellate authority, which is notified by the district office, by the state government, and within 90 days that they can file. And once an IC has settled a case, they just need to keep an eye out for next 5 years that the safeguard guarding of women's rights is taken care of. And important for all of us to note that sexual harassment is a cognizable offense. That means a person can be arrested without a warrant. That's how serious the POSH law is. And even the Indian Penal Code has incorporated the concept of sexual harassment. And sexual harassment is a criminal offense, and the woman has the right to file a police complaint, and the internal committee can support her in filing this report as well. And it's important for all of us to know that the confidentiality under the POSH law is very serious, and there is a penalty also notified under POSH law, that in case any details of the aggrieved woman or even the respondent or the witnesses are revealed, and whoever has revealed is slapped with a penalty of 5,000 rupees. And that is how serious the issue of confidentiality is. And that is why you saw that the reporting of cases are going up gradually. And the possible recommendations that the internal committee can give in terms of penal actions to the management are what you see: deduction of salary, carrying out community service, counseling, terminating the employment as well, withholding of increments, promotions, reprimand, etc., can be part of the recommendations of the internal committee. Important to note that in case it is found that the woman has filed a wrongful complaint, it was a malicious complaint, then whatever punishments that are listed for the respondents, same punishments can be given to the woman under the POSH law. So that is the important aspect, that it is, though a woman-centric legislation, if it is wrongfully used, then even the woman is punished under the same principles as the male respondent may be punished. So I have a question on the screen. I'm sure all of you must know that the answer to this question is that if a transgender identifies herself as a transgender woman, then the provisions of POSH law also apply to that transgender. So that is also important for us to know, that it is not only applicable to women gender, but also transgender women. And your organization is mandated to file an annual report This is important to note. Every calendar year by 31st of January, we are supposed to file this report with our district office, and it is only this year that Gurgaon administration has extended the date to April, but all the other states have still maintained 31st January of the next calendar year. We have to file this report. Hence, it asks questions like how many cases received, how many resolved within 90 days, were there any workshops held, awareness sessions held. So because all these are expectations under the POSH law that is there. And finally, we must know that if any of your members or your organizations does not have internal committee, then as per law, they can be slapped with a penalty of 50,000 rupees. Here we had the case of Vodafone, they were slapped with a penalty of 50,000 rupees. Air France, they were also slapped with a penalty. And if it is repeat offense, the fine can be doubled. And if it is subsequent offense, even the business license can be cancelled. That's how serious the implementation of POSH law is. And I'm sure you're representing organizations which are preparing director's report under the Companies Act, Companies Law, and under that in 2018, this particular provision of POSH law, that if you have created an internal committee or not, is part of your director's report declaration and your annual report declaration, so that the menace of sexual harassment is away from our society. And finally, I want to close my session with the last video for the day, which is again the summary of our discussions. Just a takeaway that speak up, and sexual harassment is not only physical in nature. In case you have 10 or more employees, it is mandatory for you to constitute your internal committee, and within 90 days, the inquiry has to be completed. Now let's all watch this video and
He just put his arms around me on my shoulders and then just tried to be, I mean, he was almost over me. Then he would make sure that I leave the organization.
Did you know that sexual harassment is a criminal offense, is punishable with imprisonment of up to 3 years?
Every organization has to follow the law on sexual harassment of women at workplace, be it big or small, and whether it has women employees or not.
An organization has to help you lodge a complaint with the complaint committee of the organization that the harasser is working, or even lodge a police complaint against the harasser if you desire.
The evaluation of sexual harassment charge depends on how a woman sees it. What matters is what you perceived and not what the harasser says he intended.
The law mandates confidentiality. This is to prevent the identification of women, harasser, witness in the public or the media.
Did you know that you need lesser proof under the law than you need to get justice under the criminal law? In this case, you need to prove only the probability. Whereas under the criminal law, the proof has to be beyond reasonable doubt.
You can make a sexual harassment complaint against an organization's employee even if you don't work there. You could be anybody, a visitor, a customer, a bystander, or a job seeker, but still be able to complain.
Did you know that the law provides prompt remedy? That's because the complaint committee has to finish the inquiry within 90 days, and the 90-day period starts from when the complaint has been lodged, and not from when the incident has occurred.
So that brings me to the end of the session. And if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to handle. And I'm sure I've been able to sensitize about the seriousness of this law.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, please.
My name is Meena. So let's take the scenario where a man harasses a woman and she retaliates and gives it back to him. Be it physically, when he harasses, she also physically gives it back to him completely and hurting him. In this scenario, she can, after bashing him up also, can she go ahead and put a sexual harassment case on him?
Yes, she can.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, she can, because that is her immediate physical response, which we call it as a reflex action. And even if she is physically injured, she just has to file the complaint with the internal committee because she is seeking respite. And it is a normal reflex action. If somebody is physically harassing you, you would want to stop that act. But she can file, just because she has stopped her, the other person physically does not void her right to file complaint. She can.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ma'am, I have one question here.
Yeah.
How do you address men harassment at workplace?
So, under the POSH law, it is specifically for women. But at the beginning, I said that the extension has to be made in your organization's policy, that you as an organization have zero tolerance towards harassment. So, in case there is a sexual harassment scenario faced by a male colleague, they need to contact the HR or the discipline committee or the grievance committee of the organization for remedy. Right,
Thank you,
Lata?
ma'am. Yes, yes. Thank you, ma'am. And one more question here is, can they approach the IC?
They can approach, but IC is not advised to conduct an inquiry because the element of aggrieved woman would miss from the entire scenario. IC can receive the complaint and pass it on to the HR.
Okay, okay. Got it. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Any question, please? So, it was a wonderful session. It was self-explanatory, and in just 1.5 hours, you have made it clear that what is the POSH law, and you made it very interesting what type of gender discrimination is happening, because all this misogynist idea of harassing and bullying, it starts from the upbringing. So not only at office but at the home place also, we should not discriminate between our male babies and female babies and impart them with knowledge. And we know that Warren Buffett, what he said even in America, that he is competing only with half of the population. So we can understand what means, what that implies in a country like India. If 50% of women force, at least they joined an office where they are having equal opportunity of growth, what will be the impact on the economy and what will be the impact of overall well-being of the mental space. So thank you very much. May I request all of you to switch on your video so that we can have a photograph with ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this, for agreeing to address our members. It was wonderful. I know that many of our members, they didn't know that it is actually important to have POSH committee, internal committee, if there is no women employee. They thought if only they have women employee, and if it is more so, somebody mentioned that if it is woman entrepreneur, then it is required. So there was a lot of miscommunication, misconception. So you have really cleared all those. So may I have all of you with video on so that we can have a photo all together. And let us make this workspace a happy place for all of us.
For everyone.
For everyone. Yeah.
It is a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
So
thank you so much, Dr. Tina. The program was so much insightful and so much informative. Within 1.5 hours, like we have to know the entire law about.